syllabus, the English medium content, that you could write it properly. So this is our first start, and we are going to start with the Regulating Act. Okay. So Regulating Act, as we say, that was the origin of the Indian Constitution. Why I am saying this origin of Indian Constitution? Because this was the first act where that was described that company would get some political power to act. So how and what were the functions, what were the circumstances available for? So the Regulating Act 1773 is of great constitutional importance. It was passed by Lord North. Who was the Prime Minister of that time? That was Lord North. That was Lord North government. You know, there was and there is a parliamentary system, parliamentary type of government. So there were House of Lords, Common House, and of course the Queen. So the Regulating Act was passed by Lord North's government. It is an act which definitely recognizes the political functions of the company. How it sounds, and how do you feel when it comes that political function? Political functions mean to make law. When we say political functions of the company, is emphasizing of making law. Making law, the political function mean. And when you say the company, it means East India Company. What was the full form of East India Company? The Company of Merchants of London trading to East Indies. That was the real complete name of company, East India Company. It asserted for the first time the rights of the parliament to dictate the form of government, which was considered till then the private possession of the company. So first time what was described? It asserted for the first time the rights of the parliament. The rights of parliaments. The rights for parliament. And of course, parliament was existing in London, in England. So there were two houses, there were two tiers. So when we come about the parliament, what was the need of parliament to make law for company? So it was the first of long series of parliamentary status that altered the form of government in India. The act provided the basis of the Anglo-Indian Constitution. It provided the basis of Anglo-Indian government. Right? Anglo-Indian government. That was the first thing which occurred. So now we'll get some more information about the circumstances available. What were the circumstances available for? Circumstances meant what was the need of company, what was the need of parliament, what need of the crown to make law for that. So circumstances always were, many circumstances were there. So many factors or circumstances or causes were responsible for the enactment of the Regulating Act 1773. We are discussing some of the important causes which necessitated the passing of the Regulating Act by the British Parliament. So what were the circumstances? The first circumstance was the need for money. Every time the company was demanding loan from British government from many more persons. So government thought that how this money was needed, because company was not in profit, and the officers of the company, they were becoming rich and rich by time and tide. So first factor was agitation for parliamentary control over Indian affairs. Agitation. We are talking about agitation. Agitation for parliamentary control. For parliamentary control. When I am repeating parliamentary control, it means both the houses with the queen. Parliamentary control over Indian affairs. Before that, what was happening? Indian affairs. Because company was playing all the roles in India, like they gained Diwani in 1765 at the time of Shah Alam II. There was Basha Shah Alam II in India, so he granted that permission. So many more things were controlled by Diwani and Fauzdari by company. Diwani to collect the tax and Fauzdari to control the and to provide the protection to people, like this was. It enjoyed the exclusive right of trading with India. It enjoyed the exclusive right of trading with India. The company was permitted in 1600 with the monopoly of trade, that only company could trade in India. So that was the thing. So the company gave rise to JLC, that monopolistic rights of the company give rise to the JLC and public resentment in England, that only the company would get that monopoly right. So that was the jealous position of other companies in England, that they were demanding to trade in India, to demolish or to withdraw that monopolist right. The monopolistic rights for company gave rise to jealousy and public resentment in England. So public resentment. Why the public was in that condition? Public resentment. Public resentment because there were some other companies were connected to other government officials, and they were demanding that they would also trade in India, and by that time the only company was granted that permission. So the demand for free trade became so strong that the parliament by act, the demand for the free trade. Next thing is the demand for free trade. Demand for free trade. Free trade in India. Free trade means its meaning always changes accordingly. So demand for free trade. Free trade means the only East India company would trade in India. That is the meaning of free trade. By the time free trade means change. So the demand for free trade in India became so strong that the parliament by an act, that parliament should pass another act. So that was the thing which was happening in Britain, in London, and many more places in England. So it decided to revoke the monopoly and allow every British subject to trade in the East till prohibited by a parliamentary law. The company, however, averted the danger of obliging British government with enormous loans. The company was always getting more and more loans, right? And at the same time, government officials, they were becoming rich. So that was the reason. So the move for free trade was shelved for some time, not without making it clear that the independence of the company was subordinate to the supremacy of the parliament. That was the thing, how these things were granted, how these things occurred, right? So There were some more things. The company, however, averted the danger of obliging the move for free trade was shelved for some times, not without making it clear that the independence of the company was subordinate to the supremacy of the parliament. That was the thing. The independence of the company, the company was taking all types of decision, whether it was political or economical or every time. So these British merchants continued to demand parliamentary intervention in the affairs of the company. So that was the demand of British merchants, because there were many more companies. So demand of British merchants, demand for British merchant continued, like the British Parliament should act in these matters, that British Parliament should intervene in these matters. So the active and direct control of the British Parliament over Indian affairs began from 1773. Right? Why? Because some type of political power was allowed by company in India, and that was permitted by the British Parliament. First time that was happening, British Parliament was intervening into that matter. So British Parliament over Indian affairs began from 1773 with the enactment of the Regulating Act. That is the thing. And now we move forward. Another point was constitutional difficulties. Constitutional difficulties. Constitutional difficulties. Constitutional difficulties. I am talking about constitutional difficulties means there was confusion, there was not supreme power who could control all the presidencies, like Madras presidencies, Bombay presidencies. There was also Bengal presidency was the main presidency among all those presidencies. The confusion was there that whose law should act as the ideal act. So constitutional difficulty, the battles of Plassey and Buxar fought in 1757 and 1764 later. So these battles, they established the supremacy of the company over Bengal. Two battles, like the Battle of Plassey and the Battle of Buxar. There is no need to write these battles. So these battles, what battles did? Those battles established the supremacy of the company over Bengal. That was the thing. Established the supremacy over Bengal. When we say Bengal in 18th century, that was the time of 18th century, Bengal. So Bangladesh, some part of Assam, I'm talking about the contemporary Bengal, West Bengal, some part of Odisha, some part of Bihar. So all those parts were involved in Bengal. When we say establish the supremacy of Bengal, it means that area was so wide, so big area actually. So that was that established the supremacy of Bengal, Bihar, and third one, original Orissa. So collective taxing, to collect tax, to establish protection, to establish security, that was the thing were there. So the supremacy of company over Bengal, Bihar and Odisha to collect revenue and to collect revenue and the Nizamat. collecting revenue was considered as Diwani, the Diwani and Nizamat, like Diwani to collect tax. So tax from whom? To collect the tax from whom? From peasants, from farmers, from merchants. So all the rights were given to the company in 1765. That was the later phase of Battle of Buxar, when three main powers were defeated by company. So that was the thing. So established the supremacy of over Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, right? Three states were there. The right of administration to control. Nizamat, what is the exact meaning of Nizamat? When we say Nizamat, Nizamat means the right to administer criminal justice. Administer criminal justice. Right? And Diwani, to collect tax, to look after the civil matters. Right? So these were two main powers. So then two powers were there, Diwani and Nizamat. So there were some difficulties. The English treatment anybody to possess territory except in the name of the crown. Hence the British Indian, the taking over the company's territories by the crown. But such a position to another naughty problem, while the company could continue to act in the capacity of the Dev of the Mughal emperor. That was the thing which was occurring. So what was the main difficulty? Who was the main power to control? Who was means there was a system, there was an administration in Bengal, in Bombay, in Madras. So making law by governor of the presidencies was most important thing. But sometimes it happened that the law made by presidencies were totally different from each other. So that was the problem, right? Because the emperor, the Mughal emperor was there. So who would control all those territory except Diwani and Nizamat, right? So that was decided to revoke the monopoly and allow every British subject to trade in the East till prohibited by a parliamentary law. That happened in previous phase. The crown could not take that subordinate role upon himself. So that was the main confusion. Then where the crown was there, but crown was not ruling directly. The company was ruling on the name of behalf on the name of the company. So on the name of the crown, that was the main confusion. And Mughal emperors was there. So who would control the rest? Indian arena, Indian field, Indian zone. So that was the main point. So what happened? The crown could not take that subordinate role upon herself. Second, direct control of the crown over the provinces of Bengal, Bihar and Orissa was likely to despine the Mughal emperor. So the Marathas and other natives, Rajas, were also there. Thirdly, right to property was continued to be legitimate and sacred in England in the 18th century. That was the main condition. And the Indian territories were in no way different from the private property of the company. So these were the things which happened and which provided the opportunity, you can say, which provided the opportunity to make law for company in India. So some better things, some important events occurred that time. and the state control over the Indian territories was considered repugnant to the principle of private property, yet leaving the company free of state control was also not advisable, because companies' misrule in India was likely to bring a bad name to Great Britain. So that was the thing. Keeping the aforesaid difficulties in view, the parliament decided to let the company keep its territorial gains, but to act as an agent of the British government. That was the need of parliament to make law for company in India. So that happened at that time, and British parliament made law for company in England. Next point, the bribe, private trade and gifts to the company servant. That was the main problem. Bribe, they received some money from crown, Raja and their nobles like Mantri, Senapati, like that. So bribe, private trade and gifts to the company's servant. Bribe was main problem at that time, and it is also in this time. Bribe. The British goods were totally exempted from paying local taxes or were charged only token excise duty. That was the thing which was happening. The British goods were totally exempted from paying local taxes, like as you can say, sale tax. So they were charged only token excise duties, whereas it was imposed on Indian traders, and they were not exempted from any duty. So the servants of the company began to abuse their privileges, right? They were receiving bribe, and they earn a fortune for themselves by allowing the goods of Indian trade to pass without paying any tax whatsoever. They also began to accept bribe from Indian businessmen and another civilians in return from favors done to them.